Hi, and welcome to Ruth Reads. My name is Ruth Vander Zee, and today I'm going to be reading one of my stories. To understand my stories, you have to understand that throughout history, a lot of people made a lot of decisions. And some of them were good, and some of them were not good. But all those decisions affected children in some way or another. And the reason I like my stories so much is that my stories happened to real life people. And along the way, they told me their stories. They trusted me to tell me a lot about their story, and they told me that I could tell you. So what amazes me is that they went through so many difficult experiences, but they all came out the other end with hope and strength and courage. Along the way, they asked a lot of hard questions. They wondered why things happened to them, and they had to figure a lot out. But one thing for sure is when they told me their stories, they touched my heart, and I was inspired, and I hope their stories inspire you. Eli Remembers, written by Ruth Vander Zee and Marion Snyder, illustrated by Bill Farnsworth, and published by Erdman's Books for Young Readers. Eli was a boy of 10 when this story was written. He lived in London, and he was chosen by the BBC to be the star of a half-an-hour TV show that brought children back to the country where their parents had come from. And he was taken to the country of Lithuania. And he went on this wonderful excursion and met family members. And then after the cameras were finished shooting the show, they brought him to the Ponar Forest. Now, the Ponar Forest is outside of Vilnius, Lithuania. And it was here where Eli discovered something very important about his family. Because for many years, first his great-grandmother, then his grandfather, and then even his father, always was very sad on Rosh Hashanah, which is a Jewish holiday. And he always wondered why everybody kind of cried on Rosh Hashanah. When everybody else's families were happy, his family was always kind of sad. And the thing that he always was told is, Eli, you're too young to understand. And we are not going to tell you. Well, when he was in Lithuania, he was brought to this beautiful place. Now, if I asked you, if you saw this, what would you want to do? You might say, well, I'd like to run around that, or I'd like to roll down that hill, or I'd like to just have a picnic there or something. It's a very pretty place, but this is not a pretty place. It is really a killing field. And that is what Eli discovered. Let me read you his story. When I was just a little kid, great-grandmother Gussie lit 7 candles at our family dinner on Rosh Hashanah Eve, sighed, and then whispered a prayer over them. When great-grandfather Louis blessed the wine, I watched my great-grandmother. She was still looking at the candles. A tear fell down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly with her white linen napkin. I loved being crowded into her small kitchen with my family for the Jewish New Year's celebration. I loved the smell of her roasted chicken, sweet potatoes with fruit, and noodle pudding. I love seeing the honey cake on a plate ready for us to eat at the end of the meal. Mom said that just one bite would give us a sweet new year. Why does great-grandmother light 7 candles and why does she cry on such a happy night? I asked. My mom leaned over to me. Eli, she said, some things are too difficult to talk about. The year after my great-grandparents died, Grandma Mimi gathered the family at her house for the Rosh Hashanah dinner. She lit the 7 candles and prayed in a strong voice, "May the memory of our family be for a blessing." Grandpa Sam moved away from the table, the wine, and the candles. Grandma blessed the wine. I looked into Grandpa's gentle face and saw huge tears in his eyes. They never fell down his cheeks. "Why is Grandpa sad?" I asked my mom. "Is it a secret?" Just like it was with great-grandmother Eli, some things are too difficult to talk about. I was excited the year my parents invited the family to our house for dinner on Rosh Hashanah Eve. As Mom was placing the honey cake on the plate, I said, "I hope that Grandpa won't be sad tonight." We gathered around our dining room table. The smell of roasted chicken filled the room. Mom lit the 7 candles and said, "We light these candles to remember those in our family who are not with us. May their memory be for a blessing." I couldn't wait for my father to bless the wine, but when he began to speak, he sounded as if he might cry. I looked around the room. Again, Grandpa moved away from the table. My mom's eyes were closed and her hands were pressed together. Grandma put her hand on my shoulder and hugged me. Months later, my parents said they would like to take Grandpa and Grandma and me to see the place that great-grandmother Gussie came from. We bought tour books, packed our suitcases, and flew to Lithuania. One of the first things we did there was to find the house where my great-grandmother lived when she was a little girl. We even saw the lake in the center of the village where she swam with her brothers and sisters on summer days. We shopped in markets and I met Lithuanian kids. Even though we didn't speak the same language, we played games with the basketball I brought. We danced to folk music and ate food I never heard of. I even learned how to milk a cow. A few days before we were to return home, my father told me we were going to the Ponar forest. "It is a place of remembrance," he said. Just the way he said it, I knew it must be important. Mom bought red roses before we left the city. She said that we would take them to honor people who had died. I sat between Grandpa and Grandma in the van. We traveled a long time. There were no other cars or people along the way. Finally, I saw a sign that said Ponar Forest. The van stopped, and we climbed out. It was so quiet. The only sounds I heard were dogs barking in the distance. Mom's roses were the only color there. "It's cold," I shivered. I climbed up a winding trail further and further into the forest, crunching the snow with my feet. I stopped when I came to a wide, deep pit. It had jagged edges. Sharp rocks stuck out through the snow. It was so quiet now I couldn't even hear the dogs. My mom and dad stepped up beside me. Grandpa and Grandma walked slowly, holding hands, standing back. "What is this?" I whispered. Dad spoke quietly. "This is the grave of 80,000 Jews who were killed during World War II. They were force-marched night after night by the Nazis and ordered to stand around this pit. Then the soldiers shot them in their backs." Dad stood quietly for a long time. I felt like somebody was hitting my chest. I waited. Dad continued. "And then they fell into this pit. The next day, their bodies were burned." Grandpa moved up and put his arms around me. "There's more, Eli. Your great-grandmother's father and her 6 brothers and sisters were killed here. This is their grave." He took a deep breath. "Is that why we light 7 candles on Rosh Hashanah?" I asked. "Yes, Eli, that's how we honor their memory." He paused. "Once when I was about your age, I asked my mother about her father and brothers and sisters. But she cried so much when she told me." Grandpa's voice got quiet. "None of our family ever talks about what happened here." We stood looking into the pit for a long time. "Were children killed too?" "Yes," Grandpa said. "My age?" "Yes, your age and younger." I felt as gray as the sky. I walked to my mom and took 7 roses from her bouquet and climbed down to the center of the pit. I made a small mound of snow and arranged the roses on it, just like great-grandmother Gussie's 7 candles. Then I stood on the graves of our family, raised my hands, and said the familiar prayer I learned many years ago. "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one." I looked up at my grandpa. Tears were rolling down his face. He held out his arms to me. I climbed up out of the pit and went to him. "It's okay, Grandpa," I said. "It won't be a secret anymore. I'll always remember." The Ponar Forest is a thickly wooded place located 6 miles from the capital city of Vilnius, Lithuania. In 1941, the Soviet government dug large pits in this forest to be used as storage for fuel tanks. When the Nazis occupied Lithuania during World War II, they began using the Ponar Forest as a killing field, and the pits became graves for between 70,000 and 100,000 people, mostly Jews. In this story, when Eli sees the pits and learns that his ancestors were among the executed Jews, he finally understands why sadness is part of his family's observance of Rosh Hashanah. Traditionally, this holiday is a time when Jews celebrate and look forward to the coming year. The prayer Eli recites at the execution pit is called the Shema, the central prayer of the Jewish faith. This book is based on actual events inspired by co-author Marion Snyder's grandson, Eli Sandler. This story was also the subject of a British television documentary which first aired in May 2004. Ruth Vander Zee. The end.
Thanks for visiting Ruth Reads. All my books are based on critical social issues and are great for curriculum use. If you have any questions that arose as I was reading the book, or if you have any curriculum guide needs, please visit my website at www.ruthvanderzee.com. You can find all my information there and you can contact me. It will also be linked in the description box below. Please like and subscribe to this video. That would be so nice if you do that. You can purchase my books at any independent local bookstore or at Amazon.com. And I have to give a shout out to my awesome producer, Ilse Vander Zee. Thanks for visiting. See you soon.